Thanks, Sam. And now we're diving into our main topic, where we're going to be talking about something that in the crypto industry is maybe a bit controversial. However, traditional finance might agree with us, and that is maybe the SEC has been doing something right in trying to get control over some of the wild west of crypto. Herwig, there's a whole lot to unpack here, but I think that which way do you want to go first?
I mean, I think the general message is the SEC is not as bad as I think most of the crypto community makes them out to be, and we're going to try to shine a little bit of light on that today.
Sure.
I want to start off with talking about maybe some of the realities that we're dealing with, right? Crypto is a brand new technology, asset class, whatever you want to describe it as in your own terms, but it's brand new, which means that when it comes from a legislative perspective, there are not any real rules designed for this. And we have not seen any passed and really made around this other than, I think Biden's recent sort of study around crypto. There has been a result now in order to try to regulate crypto, and meaning nobody knows who is actually going to regulate it. So you've got a turf war that they say between the CFTC, between the SEC, talking about, okay, who and how do we regulate this?
Yeah, and I think that it's been a big problem because in the midst of this kind of lack of clarity between the different regulators, we're seeing fraud happen. And it's just as simple as that, right? You've got FTX and the total collapse and mismanagement of those funds. You see everything going on with the Terra Luna case that we mentioned today, with $40+ billion of real equity value lost in that ecosystem. You see all kinds of Ponzi schemes and smaller frauds happening all the time. A lot of these lenders going bankrupt, like Celsius and Voyager and Genesis. There's easily a dozen billion-dollar holes across the industry, and that doesn't even include potentially the elephant in the room, which is Binance has been under a lot of stress recently as well, right? So we're talking about so much money from real custodians, from people giving their dollars to somebody that they trust to hold those dollars, and then those people are misappropriating those funds. And unfortunately, there has to be consequences for that, not only for the people that are committing fraud, but you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and expect that something's going to change, which seems to be where the SEC's positioning right now.
Yeah, and also potentially even the legislators as well, starting to feel the heat, if you will, because we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, both in the form of actual fraud and problems, but also in just losses and things that actually were not expected potentially for the individual.
So they weren't disclosed.
Weren't disclosed, right? Whether it's mismanaging their keys or potentially on a centralized platform, things going wrong, up a dozen other, being suspected things. This is a real problem, whether we like it or not. And when we look at it, off the phrase of, it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. We're trying to see how can we actually bring the best protection to people while trying to regulate something that has no definition around it. And the SEC is forced to kind of use what's in play today, right?
Yeah, let's talk about what the duck is going on, which in this case, we've got RIA changes. So with a registered investment advisor, this is somebody that can manage funds on behalf of investors, of people that are giving you money, and you're helping them understand where they can allocate that capital. And recently, the SEC came out and voted in the idea that an RIA needs to be responsible for where that money's going, which seems kind of rational. However, it does have broader implications for crypto in the sense that the SEC is suggesting, and there's no laws passed yet, there's nothing that's directly enforceable yet. However, it does seem like the SEC doesn't feel that crypto companies are qualified to be a custodian of these assets because of the fact, specifically, Gensler saying the commingling of funds, the mismanagement of these things means that we can't trust these companies on their word, potentially unless there's either licenses attached where they have to go through, scrutiny, they have to go through disclosure processes, they need to be verified in terms of this, or potentially not at all. And so that's where some of the concern is about how far this goes, and there's not a lot of direction on that yet. However, again, as we're talking about, there maybe is merit to this, considering the fact that a lot of these companies were really mismanaging funds in a way that the average person looks at it and says, how could you have even justified or rationalized those extremely risky decisions, those crazy loans, the potential fraud in a lot of cases to cover these things up? We got to find a way to prevent this from happening in the future.
100%. I mean, we have to look at this from a, macro perspective, right? There is this war between innovation, of course, and the potential for new value creation versus protection. And it's pretty serious when you bring up the word protection and security, right? When those words are usually used, you also hear that with car safety, airline safety. Protection is usually something that is pretty concerning to people. And when same thing is for financial securities too, right? You need protection when it comes to investing. Why should crypto, given that it's proven to have been suspect to so much issues, let's say, that why shouldn't there be some kind of regulation? And of course, whether you like it or not, again, the SEC is going to be responsible in certain cases because legally they can be found responsible if they don't act and start enforcing securities laws the way that they see it. And so they are kind of essentially just doing their job. Whereas even though there is this fight for innovation, you've got this other side, folks, that it's like people are losing money and they need protection, and there is no existing rule framework for this to happen. So the SEC is actually looking out for people, actually helping and protecting in many cases, despite the fact that they have to be on the front line of innovation like that.
Yeah, so while this may be happening and it might be unfortunate for the crypto industry, perhaps it's better for the average investor, and perhaps maybe these rules are in place for a reason to prevent this thing from happening. I think the big question that we don't have an answer to yet, but time will tell, is will this prevent major losses in the future, or is it only potentially being a band-aid to prevent innovation, which is what a lot of technologically focused people feel. However, again, as we've said, you can't keep letting people lose money to fraud. So from that regard, I think that the SEC gets a bad rep for the fact that they're just trying to protect the average investor.
Well, hopefully you got some insight there that you may hear a lot of bad talk, but just remember that there's two sides to every story. And we also believe in the many innovations of crypto. That's how we got to security tokens today in the first place. But we also do believe in protection and being able to invest safely. Which is why I think what the SEC is doing in many cases is the right thing. But with that, you might have your own opinions, your own thoughts, your own questions regarding this. Let us know. We're, of course, always available. Now it's time to end our show with the companies of the week.